You sent a message. You can see it was read. The timestamp is there. The little check marks or the scene indicator or whatever your platform uses to confirm that the words arrived, that they were opened, that a human being on the other end looked at what you wrote, and then nothing. Silence. The conversation just stops. Most people describe this as frustrating, rude, A- social failure, something to be annoyed about and move past. What it actually is, measured in a brain scanner, is pain. Not feels like pain, not emotionally similar to pain. The same neural pathway, the same region of your brain that fires when something physically hurts you fires when someone reads your message and doesn't reply. The source doesn't matter. The stakes don't matter. The brain fires anyway. In 1998, a psychologist at Purdue University named Kipling Williams ran an experiment that seemed almost insultingly simple. 3 people in a room, 1 ball. They toss it between them for a few minutes. Casual, friendly, unremarkable. Then, at a predetermined signal the third person doesn't know about the other 2, stop throwing the ball to them. They keep tossing it to each other. The third person just stands there for 2 minutes. That's the entire experiment. 2 minutes of being left out of a ball toss with strangers you will never see again, in a situation that means nothing, with stakes that are 0. What Williams found afterward was not proportionate to the stakes, not a minor annoyance people shook off. Measurable psychological injury from 2 minutes of exclusion from a meaningless game. He spent the next 2 decades trying to understand why. The first piece of the answer came from UCLA. In 2003, a neuroscientist named Naomi Eisenberger put participants in a brain scanner and had them play a computerized version of Williams's ball toss game Cyberball while their neural activity was measured in real time. The moment exclusion began, a specific region lit up. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that activates when you feel physical pain, not a neighboring region, not a functionally similar area, the exact same tissue. Your brain processes being left out of a game the way it processes being burned or cut or struck. Eisenberger argued this wasn't a coincidence. Social and physical pain share a neural alarm because for most of human history they signaled the same threat. Being excluded from the group meant exposure, starvation, predation. The body needed to treat rejection with the same urgency as a wound, because in the ancestral environment it was one. The alarm still works. It just can't tell a playground from a threat to survival. But here is the finding that changes everything you think you understand about this. Williams wanted to know whether the identity of the person excluding you made any difference to the brain's response, whether the system was calibrated in some way, whether it evaluated the source before deciding whether to fire. He ran a version where participants were told the other players were members of the Ku Klux Klan people they actively despised, a group they would have chosen to avoid entirely. The brain fired anyway. Being excluded by someone you hate produces the same neural pain response as being excluded by someone you love. The brain does not ask whether the excluder is worth caring about. It registers one thing: you were left out. And then the alarm fires, exactly as it did for the stranger with the ball. Your nervous system will feel rejected by someone you despise. There is no part of you that is immune to being ignored. And then Williams found something darker. He tracked what happened not just in the moment of exclusion, but in the hours that followed. What he found was a sequence so consistent across subjects, cultures, and ages that he gave it a name: the temporal need-threat model. The first response is reconnection. People try harder to be noticed, to fit in. They smile more, they agree more. The brain, registering a threat to belonging, immediately works to resolve it through connection. If that fails, something shifts. The second response is aggression, not always visible, but measurable. Irritability, hostility, a willingness to harm that wasn't there before. The brain, unable to reconnect, switches strategies. Make yourself dangerous enough that rejecting you has a cost. And if that fails too, if the exclusion is prolonged, the third response arrives. numbness, not sadness, not anger, a flatness, a withdrawal from caring at all. Williams called this stage the most dangerous one and the hardest to reverse. The person stops trying to reconnect, stops trying to retaliate, stops engaging with the social world entirely. The fundamental human drive to belong, suppressed long enough, stops asserting itself. Williams called it social death. If you have read about the beautiful ones, the mice in Calhoun's experiment, who stopped fighting, stopped mating, stopped participating in their species, you are reading about the same endpoint. Different cause, different scale, identical destination. The word already knew this was coming. Ostracism comes from the Greek ostrakon, a shard of pottery. In ancient Athens, when citizens wanted to exile someone from the city, they held a vote. Each citizen scratched the name of the person they wanted to banish onto a piece of broken clay, the shard that cast you out. And here is the detail worth sitting with. To exile someone, the community had to gather. The mechanism of exclusion was participation. Removing someone from the group required the group to come together. The word for the most devastating social experience a human can suffer is named after a broken piece of clay, and the only way to break someone with it was for everyone else to show up. Now here is where you are in this. Not Athens, not a Purdue laboratory, not a brain scanner at UCLA. The read receipt you left unanswered this week, the group photo that went up without you in it, the meeting you found out about after it happened, the conversation that paused when you entered the room. Williams ran versions of his experiment online, people excluded from digital ball toss games by avatars they could not see, in spaces with no physical stakes. The neural response was identical. The brain cannot distinguish between being left out of a room and being left on red on a screen. The medium changes. The alarm fires the same. And here is the piece that should stop you completely. Williams told participants in some versions of the experiment that they were being excluded by a computer program, not a person, not even a simulated person, just an automated script running a ball toss game with no human behind it. They knew. The pain was still there. Kipling Williams spent 30 years trying to explain why ostracism is uniquely devastating in a way that other forms of rejection are not. His answer came down to what it threatens. Hatred is painful, but hatred, in a specific way, is also confirming. It tells you that you exist, that you are real, that you have enough weight in someone else's world to be worth their hostility. Hatred is relational. It requires the other person to see you. Ostracism does something different. It doesn't argue with your existence. It doesn't acknowledge it. It threatens the four needs Williams identified as fundamental to human psychological stability: belonging, control, self-esteem, and meaningful existence simultaneously, without warning and often without explanation. There is no argument to counter, no grievance to address, no signal to decode, just silence. And silence, in the architecture of a nervous system built for a world where exclusion meant death, is the most dangerous message the social world can send. Being hated means you matter enough to destroy. Being ignored means you don't matter at all.